Raise your glass to David Park, everyone. The man who built his empire on the foundation of my wife's legs and my family's connections. And somehow I'm the one holding the champagne flute like a fool, standing at this podium in the Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom, while 300 of the city's business elite watch me present the Entrepreneur of the Year award to the man who's been sleeping with my wife for 18 months. The crystal champagne flute feels heavier than it should in my hand as I force my mouth into what I hope resembles a smile. Though inside, I'm dying 1,000 deaths because Elena stands there beside David Park, her hand possessively resting on his arm, like she has every right to touch him, like she hasn't been lying to my face every morning for the past year and a half, when she kisses me goodbye and tells me she loves me before going off to fuck the man I've been mentoring and funding with my family's money. David Park represents the future of innovative technology, I hear myself saying into the microphone, my voice steady even though my heart is hammering against my ribs like a caged bird desperate to escape. And his company, Park Industries, has shown remarkable growth in just 3 years since its founding. 3 years. The exact length of my marriage to Elena Vasquez, though she calls herself Elena Chen now, though she never deserved to carry my family's name, though she targeted me specifically because I'm Marcus Chen, heir to Chen Industries, 4th-generation shipping empire that my great-grandfather built from nothing when he immigrated from Taiwan with $20 and a dream that his descendants would never know poverty. I can see my mother, Catherine Chen, in the audience, her face a mask of composed horror, because she knows, she's always known that Elena was wrong for me, that there was something calculating behind those dark eyes, and that sweet smile that convinced me I was the luckiest man alive when she agreed to marry me 3 years ago, when she was just a struggling marketing student at the university, and I was the wealthy businessman who thought he'd found true love. Elena convinced me to mentor David, convinced me that helping a brilliant young entrepreneur was the right thing to do, convinced me to introduce him to our business network and co-sign loans and partnership agreements that I now realize were designed to funnel Chen Industries' resources into Park Industries, while making it look like legitimate business investments, and I was so blinded by what I thought was love that I never questioned why my wife was so interested in helping another man succeed. I want to especially thank someone who has been invaluable to Park Industries' success, David says, as he takes the microphone from my hand, his fingers brushing mine in what looks like an accident but feels like a deliberate insult. Elena Vasquez has provided not just marketing expertise, but inspiration and support that made all of this possible. The applause thunders through the ballroom as Elena steps forward. Her red dress, the one I bought her for our 2nd anniversary, catching the light as she stands beside David like they're already a couple, like she hasn't been playing the role of loving wife for 3 years while planning my destruction, and I watch my business associates and friends clap for the woman who's been systematically destroying my family's legacy while I stood by and handed her the tools to do it. I can taste bile in my throat as David continues his speech, thanking Elena for her invaluable support and inspiration. And I know everyone in this room can see what I've been too blind to notice, the way Elena looks at David like he's her whole world, the way David's hand finds the small of her back, with the familiarity of a man who knows every inch of her body, the way they stand together like they belong together, while I stand here like the third wheel at my own public humiliation. My phone buzzes in my pocket, and I glance down to see a text from my private investigator, James Walsh, the one person I trusted with my growing suspicions about Elena's behavior. Got the photos you requested. You're not going to like them. Can we meet tomorrow? But I don't need photos to confirm what I can see with my own eyes, as Elena leans into David's embrace during the photographer's session, her engagement ring, my grandmother's engagement ring, catching the light as she places her hand on David's chest. And I realize that everyone in this room knows I'm being cuckolded except me. that I've been the last to know that my marriage has been a sham from the very beginning. The worst part isn't even the affair. It's the way Elena convinced me that supporting David was my idea, that being generous with my family's business connections was the noble thing to do, that sharing our resources and opening our doors was what a good husband does when his wife believes in someone's potential, and I fell for every word, because I thought Elena loved me when she was really just using me as a stepping stone to elevate her real lover. As the evening winds down and the business elite begin to filter out of the ballroom, Elena approaches me with that same sweet smile she's worn for 3 years, the one that used to make my heart race and now makes my stomach turn because I can see the calculation behind it, the way she's already planning her next move. "Marcus, darling," she says, slipping her arm through mine like the perfect wife. "Wasn't David's speech wonderful? I'm so proud of how far he's come with your mentorship." Your mentorship? Like she had nothing to do with it. Like she wasn't the one pushing me to introduce David to every important contact in my network. Like she wasn't the one who suggested I invest in his company and co-sign those loan agreements that now have Chen Industries tied to Park Industries' success. Like she's not the one who's been feeding David inside information about our business strategies so he could outmaneuver us in contract negotiations. "Yes," I managed to say, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. "He certainly exceeded expectations." Elena squeezes my arm, and I want to pull away, but I can't. Not here, not in front of everyone who's already witnessed enough of my humiliation for one evening. So I let her touch me, even though her skin feels like ice against mine, and her perfume, the expensive one I bought her for Christmas, now smells like betrayal and lies. "I'm going to powder my nose," Elena says, kissing my cheek with lips that have been kissing another man. "And then we should head home. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." She doesn't specify what makes tomorrow special, but something in her tone sends a chill down my spine as I watch her glide away across the marble floor, her hips swaying in that red dress that I thought she wore for me, but now realize she wore for David. And I know with terrible certainty that whatever tomorrow brings, it's going to destroy what's left of my carefully constructed world. I don't sleep that night because every time I close my eyes, I see Elena's hand on David's chest, see the way they looked at each other like they shared secrets I wasn't privy to, see the satisfied smiles they exchanged when they thought no one was watching. But mostly I keep hearing David's voice thanking Elena for her invaluable support and inspiration, and wondering how long I've been living a lie. Elena sleeps peacefully beside me, her breathing steady and calm, like she doesn't have a care in the world, like she hasn't just publicly humiliated her husband in front of the entire business community. And I study her face in the darkness. This face I thought I knew, this face I thought loved me, and try to figure out when she stopped being my wife and started being my enemy. At 6 a.m., I give up on sleep and slip out of bed to make coffee, my hands shaking as I measure the grounds because I know today is going to change everything. And when Elena appears in the kitchen at 7:30, wearing my favorite silk nightgown, the blue one that used to drive me crazy with desire, but now just makes me feel sick, I can barely look at her. "Good morning, darling," she says, sliding her arms around my waist from behind and pressing her face against my back. And I want to shrug her off, but I force myself to stand still, to let her touch me even though her hands feel like poison against my skin. "Morning," I say, pouring her coffee into the mug I gave her on our first anniversary, the one that says, "Mrs. Chen," in elegant script, and I wonder if she ever felt guilty drinking from it while planning my destruction. "Marcus," Elena says, settling at the kitchen island with her coffee, "we need to talk about something important." Here it comes. Whatever she's been planning, whatever tomorrow's big day means, whatever the next phase of her scheme involves, and I force myself to meet her eyes, even though looking at her face, knowing what I know, now feels like staring into the sun. David's company is at a crucial growth phase, Elena continues, her voice taking on that persuasive tone she uses when she wants something. And there's an opportunity for Chen Industries to really make a difference in his success. His success, not our success, not the company's success, but his success. Like Elena's already chosen sides, and it's not mine. Like she's already decided that David Park matters more than the husband who's given her everything for 3 years. What kind of opportunity? I ask, though I'm dreading the answer because I know it's going to involve more of my family's resources, more of our business connections, more ways for Elena to strip Chen Industries of everything my great-grandfather built while making it look like I'm voluntarily giving it away. Elena pulls out a folder of documents. The same kind of official paperwork that's been slowly bleeding my company dry for months, and spreads them across the marble countertop like she's dealing cards in a game where she already knows all the hands. Partnership agreements, she says, her fingers tracing the edges of the papers. That would give Park Industries exclusive access to Chen Industries' logistics network for the next 5 years, plus preferential rates on shipping contracts and shared access to our international client base. I scan the documents and my blood runs cold because this isn't a partnership. It's a surrender, a complete capitulation that would essentially make Park Industries the primary beneficiary of every business relationship my family has spent 4 generations building, while leaving Chen Industries as nothing more than David Park's shipping subsidiary. Elena, I say carefully, these terms are extremely favorable to Park Industries and not particularly beneficial to Chen Industries. Our lawyers would never recommend— Our lawyers don't understand the vision, Elena interrupts, her dark eyes flashing with something that might be irritation or might be panic. And sometimes in business you have to take risks to see real rewards. Real rewards. For whom? For David Park, who gets access to a century of Chen family business relationships? For Elena, who gets to see her lover's company succeed at her husband's expense? For the Vasquez family, who I'm starting to suspect might be more involved in this scheme than I originally thought? I need to review these with my legal team, I say, which is true but also a stalling tactic because I need time to understand exactly how deep this betrayal goes and get my father's input since these agreements would affect the entire company structure. Elena's face tightens almost imperceptibly. So briefly I might have missed it if I wasn't watching for signs of deception, and I realize she was expecting me to sign these documents immediately, that whatever timeline she's working under doesn't allow for legal review or family consultation. Marcus, she says, reaching across the counter to cover my hand with hers, her touch gentle and warm and completely false. You know I only want what's best for us, for our future together. David's success could be our success if we're smart about this partnership. Our future together. The words taste like ash in my mouth because I know now that Elena doesn't see a future with me at all, that every time she says us, she means herself and David, that every time she talks about our success, she's calculating how much of Chen Industries' value she can transfer to her lover before she disappears from my life entirely. Of course, I say, squeezing her hand and forcing a smile. I just want to make sure we're making the best decision for everyone involved. Elena relaxes visibly, apparently satisfied that she's still in control of the situation, still able to manipulate me into doing what she wants, and she leans across the counter to kiss me, her lips soft and familiar, and tasting like the coffee I made her, and the lies she's been telling me for 3 years. I knew you'd understand, she murmurs against my mouth. You're such a good man, Marcus. That's why I love you. But even as she says the words, even as she looks into my eyes with what appears to be genuine affection, I can see the calculation behind her gaze. The way she's already planning her next move, already thinking about how to convince me to sign those partnership agreements that would complete my family's destruction. When Elena leaves for her yoga class, which I now suspect is actually a meeting with David to discuss their next strategy, I immediately call James Walsh, my private investigator, and ask him to meet me at my office within the hour, because I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I make any decisions about those partnership agreements. James arrives with a thick manila envelope and the grim expression of a man who's about to deliver news that will destroy someone's world. And as he spreads photographs across my desk, images of Elena and David entering hotels together, kissing in restaurant parking lots, holding hands while walking through parts of the city where they thought no one would recognize them, I feel the last of my illusions crumble into dust. It gets worse, James says quietly, pulling out financial records and legal documents. Elena's been feeding Park Industries inside information about Chen Industries' client negotiations for at least 18 months. Every major contract your company lost to Park Industries in the past year, she gave them advance knowledge of your bidding strategies. The room spins around me as I realize the scope of Elena's betrayal. This isn't just an affair, it's corporate espionage, a systematic destruction of my family's business designed to benefit David Park, while making it look like legitimate competition. And I've been helping them do it by trusting my wife with confidential information about Chen Industries' operations. There's more, James continues, his voice gentle but relentless. Elena's family, her mother Rosa and brother Carlos, they have a history of this kind of scheme. 3 other wealthy men in the past 10 years, all married to women who turned out to be working with the Vasquez family to transfer assets before filing for divorce. The Vasquez family, suddenly Elena's occasional mentions of her struggling family take on a sinister new meaning, and I realize that my marriage wasn't just a personal betrayal, but a business operation. A carefully planned extraction of wealth from the Chen family to the Vasquez family, using Elena as the weapon and me as the target. How long do I have? I ask, though I'm not sure I want to know the answer. Based on the pattern from their previous operations, James says, Elena will file for divorce within the next 6 months, claiming emotional abuse or abandonment to maximize her settlement. She'll take half of your personal assets plus alimony, and if you've signed those partnership agreements, Park Industries will control enough of Chen Industries' operations to essentially own the company. 6 months, half a year to figure out how to save my family's legacy from a woman I trusted with everything. A woman who's been systematically destroying us while I told her I loved her every morning and every night. A woman who convinced me that supporting her lover's business was the noble thing to do, while she planned to leave me with nothing. As James packs up his evidence and prepares to leave, my phone rings with an unknown number, and when I answer, a woman's voice I don't recognize says, "Mr. Chen? This is Detective Sarah Martinez with the Financial Crimes Unit. We need to talk about your wife's business activities and a man named David Park." I close my eyes and realize that Elena's scheme is about to collapse around all of us, that whatever endgame she's been building toward is happening now, today, and that by tomorrow my entire world will be in ruins, but at least I'll finally know the truth about the woman I married, and the man I trusted, and the family that's been systematically destroying mine for 3 years. 6 months later, I'm standing in the wreckage of everything my great-grandfather built, watching Elena pack the last of her belongings into designer suitcases, while my father, Harrison Chen, lies in a hospital bed, recovering from his second heart attack in 3 months. The stress of watching Chen Industries collapse, having nearly killed the man who spent his entire life building our family's legacy. The divorce papers arrived 4 months ago, exactly as James Walsh predicted, with Elena claiming that I was emotionally abusive and controlling, that I had isolated her from her family, and that she deserved half of everything because she had contributed to the success of Chen Industries through her marketing expertise and business acumen, the same business acumen she used to steal our client list and hand it to David Park. I hope you understand that this is for the best, Elena says as she folds the designer dresses I bought her, each one representing a moment when I thought I was making my wife happy, but was actually rewarding her for destroying my family. We both deserve to be with people who truly understand us. People who truly understand us, by which she means David Park, who proposed to her 3 weeks after she filed for divorce, offering her an engagement ring that cost more than most people's annual salary, a ring purchased with money that originally came from Chen Industries through the partnership agreements I was stupid enough to sign before I understood what they really meant. The financial investigation that Detective Martinez promised never materialized into charges because Elena and David were careful to stay within the legal boundaries of corporate competition and marital dissolution, even though they destroyed my family's business and personal relationships with the precision of military strategists executing a long-planned campaign. Park Industries now controls 60% of Chen Industries' client base, having used Elena's inside information to systematically outbid us on every major contract for the past 2 years, and the partnership agreements I signed gave them exclusive access to our logistics network and international connections, essentially making Chen Industries a subsidiary of the company my wife's lover built on our foundation. The house sold yesterday, Elena continues, not looking at me as she packs the jewelry I gave her for birthdays and anniversaries and Christmas mornings when I thought I was the luckiest man alive. So you'll need to be out by Friday. I'm sure you can find somewhere smaller that fits your new circumstances. New circumstances? My father in the hospital, my sister Lucy having dropped out of college because we can no longer afford the tuition, Chen Industries filing for bankruptcy protection, and me living in a 1-bedroom apartment across town, while Elena moves into David Park's penthouse like she's trading up from a practice marriage to the real thing. The irony isn't lost on me that Elena gets half of everything in the divorce settlement, while the everything she's getting half of is worth a fraction of what it was before she systematically destroyed it. But she doesn't seem concerned about the reduced value since David Park's company, built on Chen Industries' bones, is worth more than my family's original empire ever was. I never meant for it to happen this way, Elena says, as she closes the last suitcase, her voice taking on that gentle, regretful tone she uses when she wants to seem like the victim in situations she orchestrated. But sometimes love finds you when you least expect it, and you have to follow your heart. Follow your heart. The same thing she told me 3 years ago when she convinced me that marrying her was the best decision I'd ever made, when she made me believe that Elena Vasquez was my soulmate and that our love story was the kind of romance people write songs about, when she was actually following a carefully planned script designed to transfer as much wealth as possible from my family to hers. I understand, I say. Though what I really understand is that Elena never loved me at all, that every kiss and every "I love you" and every moment of intimacy was a performance designed to keep me compliant while she executed her family's scheme, that I was never her husband, but always her mark. After Elena leaves, I sit in the empty house where we lived as newlyweds, where I thought we would raise children and grow old together, where I believed we were building a life when she was actually dismantling mine, and I open a bottle of whiskey, the expensive kind I used to save for celebrations, because there's nothing left to celebrate and everything left to forget. My phone rings and it's Lucy, calling from the psychiatric facility where she's been since her nervous breakdown 3 months ago, when the stress of watching our family's public humiliation finally broke her 19-year-old mind and left her unable to function in the world that used to revolve around the Chen family name. "Marcus," Lucy says, her voice small and fragile like broken glass. "Are you coming to visit this weekend? The doctors say I'm making progress, but I miss you, and I miss Dad, and I want to come home, but there's no home anymore, is there?" "There will be," I lie, because what else can I tell my baby sister who's been destroyed by Elena's scheme as surely as if she'd been a direct target? "We're going to rebuild everything, Lucy. The Chen family doesn't give up." But even as I say the words, I know they're not true, because the Chen family is broken beyond repair, scattered like dust in the wind that Elena Vasquez stirred up when she decided that my great-grandfather's legacy was worth less than her lover's ambition. And I'm the last one standing in the ruins wondering how I could have been so blind for so long. That night I drive to David and Elena's engagement party at the Grand Meridian Hotel, the same hotel where Elena made me toast David's success 6 months ago. Not because I'm invited, but because I need to see them together, need to confirm that their happiness is built on my family's destruction, need to witness the celebration of everything I've lost. The whiskey makes everything seem surreal as I watch Elena in her engagement party dress. White silk that makes her look like an angel, even though she's the devil who destroyed my family. Dancing with David Park, while 300 guests celebrate their love story without knowing that it's written in the blood of the Chen family legacy. I'm drunk enough to think about confronting them, about standing up in front of all those people and telling them exactly how David Park built his empire, and exactly what kind of woman Elena Vasquez really is. But I'm also drunk enough to know that it won't matter because they've already won and I've already lost. And nothing I say can change the fact that I trusted the wrong person with everything I had. Instead, I get back in my car and drive through the city where my family used to matter, where the Chen name used to open doors and command respect, where my great-grandfather's dream used to mean something before Elena Vasquez decided it was worth sacrificing for her real family's advancement. And I realize that I don't want to live in a world where everything I believed about love and loyalty was a lie. The crash happens on 5th Street, just 6 blocks from the Grand Meridian Hotel, where Elena and David are probably cutting their engagement cake and toasting their future, while my family's past dies in a twisted pile of metal and broken glass. And as the world goes dark around me, the last thing I see is a newspaper headline on the sidewalk. Park Industries CEO announces engagement to marketing executive Elena Vasquez. Then I close my eyes in that twisted metal coffin. And when I open them again, I'm staring at the ceiling of our honeymoon suite 3 years ago, with Elena curled against my chest like a satisfied cat who'd just caught the biggest mouse in the house. The ceiling fan above our honeymoon suite bed makes the same soft whirring sound it made 3 years ago, and Elena's breathing has the same slow, satisfied rhythm of a woman who thinks she's successfully trapped her prey. But this time I know exactly what she's planning, and exactly how it ends, which makes her gentle touches feel like the caresses of a snake preparing to strike. "Good morning, husband," Elena murmurs against my chest, her voice honey-sweet with false affection, and I have to fight every instinct in my body not to recoil from her touch, because she traces lazy circles on my skin with the same fingers that will sign papers transferring my family's wealth to David Park, the same fingers that will point at me in divorce court and call me abusive, the same fingers that will wear David's engagement ring while my father dies of a stress-induced heart attack. "Good morning, wife," I say, kissing the top of her head, even though I know she's calculating how long it will take to gain access to the family safe, to learn the names of our most important business contacts, to position herself as the beloved Mrs. Chen, while planning the systematic destruction of everything the Chen family represents. She stretches like a contented cat, and I watch her face in the morning light streaming through the hotel windows. This face I once thought was the most beautiful thing in the world, but now recognize as the mask of a predator who chose me specifically because I had the most to lose. And I wonder how I ever believed that someone like Elena Vasquez could love someone like me for any reason other than money. "I love you so much, Marcus," Elena says, propping herself up on one elbow to look into my eyes with an expression of such convincing sincerity that I almost believe her, even though I know she's already planning to introduce me to David Park next month, already preparing to convince me that mentoring a brilliant young entrepreneur would be the noble thing to do. already working toward the moment when she'll stand beside David at the award ceremony and let me humiliate myself in front of 300 people. "I love you too," I say. And the words taste like poison in my mouth because I know they're true, even though hers are lies. Because even after everything I remember about Elena's betrayal and manipulation and calculated destruction of my family, some part of me still loves the woman I thought she was. The woman who never existed, except in my imagination. Elena gets up to shower, and I listen to the water running while I plan my strategy. Because this time I'm not the naive husband who trusts his wife with everything. This time I'm the man who knows exactly what Elena Vasquez is capable of, and exactly how to stop her before she destroys my family. And the first step is protecting the people who matter most before Elena even realizes she's in a war. I reach for my phone and dial a number I remember from my previous life. A number I should have called 3 years ago when I first started having doubts about Elena's motives, but was too blinded by what I thought was love to trust my instincts. "Sarah Kim," comes the voice on the other end, crisp and professional, even at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. And I feel something settle in my chest, because Sarah was always the one person who never lied to me, never manipulated me, never wanted anything from me except friendship, and maybe something more that I was too stupid to recognize until it was too late. "Sarah, it's Marcus Chen," I say, keeping my voice low so Elena won't hear me from the bathroom. "I know this is going to sound strange, but I need to hire you for some legal work and I need to keep it completely confidential." "Marcus?" Sarah's voice softens with surprise and something that might be pleasure. "I didn't even know you were back from your honeymoon. Is everything all right?" Is everything all right? The question I should have asked myself before I married Elena, before I introduced her to my family's business network, before I trusted her with access to confidential information that she used to destroy us. But this time I'm going to make sure everything is more than all right. This time I'm going to make sure Elena Vasquez gets exactly what she deserves. "Everything's fine," I lie. "But I want to set up some legal protections for Chen Industries and my personal assets. Nothing dramatic, just some additional security measures." Sarah agrees to meet with me Tuesday morning, and as I hang up the phone, Elena emerges from the bathroom wrapped in a hotel towel, her dark hair damp, and her skin glowing with the kind of radiance that comes from getting exactly what you want. And I realize that she has no idea she's already lost the war she's planning to fight. "Who were you talking to?" Elena asks with casual curiosity, though I can see the slight tension around her eyes that suggests the question isn't as innocent as it sounds. "Sarah Kim," I say truthfully, because there's no point in lying about something Elena will find out anyway. "Just some legal work for the company." Elena's expression doesn't change, but I catch the flash of something. Irritation? Concern? That crosses her face so quickly I might have missed it if I wasn't watching for signs of deception. And I realized that Elena was expecting to have more time to establish herself as my trusted confidant before I started making independent legal decisions. "Sarah Kim," Elena repeats thoughtfully. "Isn't she the one who had a crush on you in college? I hope she's not still carrying a torch." The casual cruelty in Elena's voice, the way she dismisses Sarah as a love-struck girl rather than the brilliant corporate lawyer who graduated top of her class and built her own successful practice, reminds me exactly why Elena needs to be stopped before she destroys anyone else I care about. And I make a mental note to warn Sarah about what she's getting involved in. "Sarah's a good friend and an excellent lawyer," I say neutrally, "and she understands the importance of discretion." Elena nods and seems to accept my explanation, but I can see her filing the information away for future use, already planning how to neutralize any threat Sarah might pose to her schemes, already calculating how to convince me that I don't need outside legal advice when I have such a brilliant wife to guide my decisions. After we return from our honeymoon and settle back into our normal routine, I begin the delicate process of gathering evidence against Elena while pretending to be the same trusting husband she married. And the hardest part isn't the deception. It's watching her perform the role of loving wife while knowing exactly what she's planning to do to my family. Elena brings me coffee in the morning and asks about my day and listens to my concerns about Chen Industries with expressions of such convincing support that I almost forget she's already planning to feed every piece of information I give her to David Park, who she hasn't even met yet, but who's already been briefed on the Chen family's business operations through Elena's family's intelligence network. I install hidden cameras in our home office and bedroom, not because I enjoy violating Elena's privacy, but because I need documented proof of her schemes when the time comes to expose her. And I watch the recordings every night after Elena goes to sleep, studying her behavior for signs of the calculation and deception I was too blind to see in my previous life. The most disturbing discovery is how natural Elena's performance is, how effortlessly she plays the role of devoted wife, while texting her family about my daily schedule and business activities, how convincingly she expresses concern for my well-being while planning my destruction, how perfectly she mimics genuine affection while feeling nothing but contempt for the man she's systematically betraying. 3 weeks into our marriage, Elena casually mentions that she met an interesting young entrepreneur at a coffee shop near the university, someone named David Park, who's developing innovative technology solutions and could benefit from mentorship. And I have to bite my tongue to keep from asking how long she's known David and whether their chance meeting was carefully orchestrated to seem spontaneous. "He sounds ambitious," I say instead, playing the role of supportive husband while mentally preparing for the conversation that will introduce the man who's planning to steal my family's legacy. "Maybe we should invite him for dinner so I can hear about his ideas." Elena's face lights up with what appears to be genuine excitement, though I now recognize it as the satisfaction of a predator whose trap is working perfectly. And she kisses me with enthusiasm that feels real, even though I know it's just another performance in her long-term strategy to destroy my family, while making me complicit in my own destruction. "You're such a good man, Marcus," Elena says, her arms around my neck and her eyes shining with false love. "That's why I love you so much. You always want to help people succeed." Help people succeed, like helping David Park succeed by giving him access to Chen Industries' client base, like helping Elena succeed by trusting her with confidential business information, like helping the Vasquez family succeed by failing to recognize their manipulation until it was too late to save my father's life, or my sister's sanity, or my great-grandfather's legacy. But this time I know exactly what Elena Vasquez is planning, and this time I'm going to help the right people succeed while making sure the Vasquez family gets exactly the kind of justice they deserve. And as Elena schedules dinner with David Park for next Friday, I smile and tell her I'm looking forward to meeting her new friend, because I am. I'm looking forward to meeting the man whose downfall I'm already planning. Tuesday morning arrives with the kind of crisp autumn air that makes everything seem possible. And I sit across from Sarah Kim in her downtown law office, watching her review the legal documents I've prepared while she makes notes in the precise handwriting I remember from our college study sessions, back when I was too focused on Elena's beauty to notice Sarah's brilliance and loyalty and quiet strength. "These asset protection strategies are quite sophisticated," Sarah says, looking up from the papers with professional curiosity. "What's prompting such extensive precautions?" I study Sarah's face. Intelligent dark eyes, no-nonsense haircut, understated elegance that comes from confidence rather than designer clothes. And I realize that in my previous life, I dismissed her as just a friend while pursuing Elena's dangerous glamour, never recognizing that Sarah Kim was everything Elena pretended to be. Genuine, loyal, accomplished in her own right, and interested in me as a person rather than as a source of wealth. "Call it intuition," I say carefully, because I can't tell Sarah about the rebirth, Can't explain that I know exactly how Elena's scheme unfolds because I've already lived through it once. But I want to make sure Chen Industries and my personal assets are protected from any potential threats. Sarah nods and returns to the documents, her pen moving quickly as she makes adjustments and additions that will create legal barriers Elena never anticipated, protections that will keep my family's wealth safe, even if Elena manages to manipulate me into making some of the same mistakes I made before. I'm also going to need surveillance equipment and a private investigator, I continue, and I want everything documented properly for potential legal proceedings. Marcus, Sarah says, setting down her pen and leaning back in her chair. Are you expecting some kind of legal challenge? Because if you have concerns about your wife's intentions— I don't have any specific concerns, I interrupt, which is technically true since my concerns are quite specific and based on future knowledge rather than current suspicions. But my father always taught me that preparation prevents problems. Sarah accepts my explanation because she understands the business world well enough to know that wealthy families face threats from unexpected directions, and she agrees to handle the legal protections while connecting me with a private investigator named James Walsh, the same man who helped me gather evidence against Elena in my previous life, but this time with a 3-year head start. When I meet with James Walsh that afternoon, I give him Elena's full name, her family's information, and a list of areas to investigate, framing my requests as routine background checks, rather than revealing that I already know what he's going to find about the Vasquez family's history of marriage fraud and financial manipulation. I want to know everything, I tell James, as we sit in his car outside Elena's yoga studio, watching her through the windows as she goes through poses that look peaceful and meditative, but probably serve as cover for planning my family's destruction. Her background, her family's finances, any previous relationships, any business activities. James nods and makes notes in his portfolio, and I can see him calculating the scope of the investigation I'm requesting, the resources it will require, the time it will take to compile the kind of comprehensive report I'm asking for. Though he has no idea I'm not asking him to discover Elena's secrets, but to document them for future use. This could take several months, James warns, depending on how deep you want me to dig and how much cooperation I get from sources. Take all the time you need, I say, even though I know exactly what he's going to find because I've already seen the evidence. But I want everything properly documented and legally admissible. While James begins his investigation, I start implementing the other aspects of my strategy, beginning with protecting my family from the stress and heartbreak that nearly killed my father and completely broke my sister in my previous life. And the first step is having honest conversations with both of them about the importance of being cautious about new people in our lives. I visit my father Harrison Chen at his office in the Chen Industries building, the 30-story downtown tower that represents 4 generations of family achievement, and that Elena's scheme would have reduced to a shell company serving David Park's interests, and I find him reviewing quarterly reports with the kind of focused attention that built our family's empire. "Dad," I say, settling into the chair across from his massive oak desk, "I want to talk to you about Elena and about being careful with family business information." Harrison looks up from his reports with surprise because in my previous life, I was defensive about any criticism of Elena, convinced that my family didn't understand how wonderful she was, blind to their legitimate concerns about her motivations and character. "Is everything all right?" Harrison asks, his voice carrying the kind of paternal concern that comes from watching your son make potentially dangerous decisions. "You seemed so happy with Elena during the wedding, but now you look troubled." "I'm learning that marriage requires more caution than I expected," I say carefully, "and I want to make sure we're protecting Chen Industries' interests while Elena adjusts to being part of the family." Harrison nods thoughtfully because he's built a business empire by being careful about who he trusts with sensitive information, and he understands immediately that I'm asking him to limit Elena's access to confidential family business details until I'm more confident about her discretion and loyalty. "What specifically are you concerned about?" Harrison asks, and I can see him shifting into protective father mode, ready to defend his family's legacy against any threat, even if that threat might be his son's new wife. "Nothing specific," I lie. "But Elena comes from a very different background, and I want to make sure she understands the importance of keeping family business private before we share too much information with her." Harrison agrees to be more circumspect about discussing Chen Industries operations when Elena is present, and he promises to brief the rest of the family about maintaining appropriate boundaries between personal relationships and business confidentiality, which will create obstacles for Elena's intelligence gathering that she wasn't expecting to encounter. I have a similar conversation with my sister Lucy, who in my previous life adored Elena and treated her like the big sister she never had, completely unaware that Elena was systematically destroying the family Lucy loved more than anything in the world. "Lucy," I say as we walk through Central Park on Saturday afternoon, "I want you to be careful about what you share with Elena about family business and personal information." Lucy stops walking and stares at me with confusion because in my previous life I encouraged her relationship with Elena, thinking it was sweet that my wife and sister were becoming close friends, never realizing that Elena was using Lucy's innocent chatter to gather intelligence about Chen family operations and relationships. "I thought you wanted Elena and me to be friends," Lucy says, her voice hurt and bewildered. "You said it made you happy to see us getting along." "I do want you to be friends," I say quickly, "but Elena is still adjusting to being part of our family, and I think it's better if we give her time to settle in before sharing too much personal information with her." Lucy accepts my explanation because she trusts me completely and wants to do what's best for family harmony, and she agrees to be more circumspect about discussing family business and personal details when Elena is around, which will deprive Elena of another source of intelligence she was counting on. The hardest part of building these protections is maintaining the pretense that I still trust Elena completely, while systematically cutting off her access to the information and resources she needs to execute her scheme. And I have to be careful not to make her suspicious by changing my behavior too dramatically or too quickly. Elena notices that I'm being more careful about leaving business documents around the house, and that my family members are less forthcoming about Chen Industries operations when she's present. But she attributes these changes to natural adjustment periods rather than deliberate defensive strategies, and she responds by becoming more aggressive in her attempts to gather information. "Marcus," Elena says one evening as we're having dinner at home, "I feel like your family is keeping me at arm's length. Your father barely talks to me about the business anymore, and Lucy seems distant." "They're just being respectful of our marriage," I say, which is partially true. "They don't want to burden you with business concerns while you're adjusting to being Mrs. Chen." Elena accepts this explanation, but I can see the calculation behind her eyes, the way she's already planning new approaches to gathering the intelligence she needs, new ways to position herself as the trusted family insider who should have access to confidential information. And I realize that my defensive strategies are working because they're forcing Elena to reveal her true priorities. 2 months into our marriage, Elena casually mentions her coffee shop friend David Park again, suggesting that we invite him for dinner so I can hear about his innovative business ideas. And I agree with enthusiasm that surprises her because she was expecting to have to work harder to convince me to meet the man who's supposed to destroy my family's legacy. "I'd love to meet David," I say, "especially if he's as brilliant as you seem to think he is." Elena schedules the dinner for the following Friday, and as she makes preparations with obvious excitement, I finalize my own preparations for meeting David Park, including installing additional recording equipment in our dining room and briefing James Walsh about the importance of documenting David's background and financial situation before our first encounter. This time I'm going to be ready for David Park, and this time the mentorship he receives from Marcus Chen is going to be exactly the kind of education he deserves. And by the time Elena realizes that her scheme is failing, it will be too late for her to adjust her strategy, because I'll already be 3 steps ahead of everything she's planning. Friday evening arrives with Elena fluttering around our house like an excited hostess, preparing for the most important dinner party of her life. And I watch her arrange flowers and select wine and fuss over the menu with the kind of nervous energy that suggests tonight's dinner with David Park is a crucial step in whatever timeline she's following for my family's destruction. I want everything to be perfect, Elena says as she adjusts the place settings for the 3rd time. David is so brilliant and ambitious, and I think you're really going to be impressed with his ideas. His ideas, like the idea to systematically steal Chen Industries' client base, or the idea to use Elena's marriage to gain access to my family's business network, or the idea to build Park Industries on the foundation of my great-grandfather's legacy, while making it look like legitimate competition, rather than corporate theft. I'm sure I will be, I say, opening the bottle of wine Elena selected while hiding recording devices throughout the dining room. You have excellent judgment about people. Elena beams at the compliment, apparently forgetting that her excellent judgment led her to target a man whose family built a shipping empire, whose connections span 3 continents, and whose resources could either make David Park incredibly successful or completely destroy him, depending on how tonight's dinner unfolds. The doorbell rings at 7:30 exactly, and Elena practically runs to answer it, while I position myself in the living room where I can observe David's behavior from the moment he enters our home. And when she returns with the man who's supposed to steal my legacy, I have to admit that David Park is exactly what I expected. Handsome, charming, confident, and completely unaware that he's walking into a trap. Marcus, Elena says with obvious pride, I'd like you to meet David Park. David, this is my husband, Marcus Chen. David steps forward with a firm handshake and direct eye contact, and I can see immediately why Elena chose him as her partner in this scheme. He has the kind of charismatic presence that inspires confidence and trust, the kind of natural leadership that makes people want to help him succeed, the kind of magnetic personality that could convince a naive businessman to share his family's resources without questioning the motives involved. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Chen, David says, and his voice carries just the right combination of respect and confidence. Elena has told me so much about your family's business accomplishments. Elena has told me so much about our client lists and financial strategies and business relationships and confidential operations, information that David will use to outmaneuver Chen Industries in contract negotiations while making it look like superior business acumen rather than insider trading. Please, call me Marcus, I say, guiding David toward the dining room where Elena has prepared what looks like a celebration feast. And Elena tells me you're developing some innovative technology solutions. As we settle around the dinner table, David launches into his presentation about Park Industries with the kind of polished enthusiasm that suggests he's been practicing this pitch for months, and I listen carefully while Elena watches both of us with barely concealed excitement, clearly expecting this meeting to go exactly according to her plan. The logistics technology market is evolving rapidly, David explains as Elena serves the first course. And there are tremendous opportunities for companies that can provide integrated solutions for supply chain management and international shipping coordination. International shipping coordination. Exactly the area where Chen Industries has spent 4 generations building expertise and relationships. Exactly the market segment where David Park's company will compete directly with my family's business, using intelligence Elena provides about our strategies and operations. That sounds fascinating, I say, and my interest is genuine, even though my motives are different from what David expects. What kind of partnerships are you looking for? David's eyes light up with the kind of excitement that suggests he thinks he's found the perfect mark, and he begins describing his vision for strategic alliances with established companies that could provide mentorship and resources and market access, painting a picture of mutual benefit that masks the one-sided extraction he's actually planning. I'm particularly interested in learning from family businesses with long-term perspectives, David continues. Companies like Chen Industries that have built sustainable success across multiple generations. Elena nods encouragingly, her hand resting on David's arm with the kind of possessive familiarity that suggests their relationship extends far beyond casual friendship. And I realize that she's not even bothering to hide her true feelings anymore because she assumes I'm too naive to recognize the signs of her betrayal. Chen Industries is always interested in supporting innovative entrepreneurs, I say, which is true but not in the way David thinks, especially those who understand the importance of building sustainable business relationships. As the dinner progresses, I guide the conversation toward topics that will reveal David's true character and Elena's role in their scheme, asking questions about his background and business philosophy, while watching for signs of deception or coordination between him and my wife. Where did you get the inspiration for Park Industries? I ask. And David launches into a story about recognizing inefficiencies in supply chain management while working as a consultant, though I notice that his timeline doesn't quite match the research James Walsh has already provided about David's actual background and previous employment. Elena interjects frequently, with supportive comments and additional questions that guide David toward topics where he can showcase his knowledge of logistics and international shipping, and I realize that she's carefully steering the conversation to demonstrate David's expertise in areas where Chen Industries might be vulnerable to competition. David has such innovative ideas about Asian market penetration, Elena says, her voice warm with admiration. I think Chen Industries could learn a lot from his fresh perspective on international expansion. Asian market penetration. Using connections and relationships my great-grandfather spent decades building in Taiwan and Hong Kong and Singapore. Relationships that Elena will help David exploit, while Chen Industries loses ground in markets we've dominated for 70 years. I'd be very interested in hearing those ideas, I say, and David begins outlining strategies that sound remarkably similar to confidential plans Chen Industries developed for expanding our Asian operations, plans that Elena had access to through conversations with my father, and documents she could have photographed in our home office. By the time we reach dessert, I have enough evidence to confirm that David Park is either incredibly well-informed about Chen Industries' strategic planning, or has been receiving inside information from someone with intimate knowledge of our operations, and Elena's behavior throughout the dinner leaves no doubt about who that someone might be. Marcus, David says as Elena serves coffee, I hope I'm not being too forward, but I'd love the opportunity to continue this conversation and perhaps explore ways that Park Industries and Chen Industries might work together. I'd be delighted, I say, and my enthusiasm surprises both David and Elena because they were expecting to have to work harder to convince me to consider a business relationship. Why don't you come by my office next week and we can discuss specific possibilities? Elena's face glows with satisfaction as she watches David and me exchange business cards and schedule a follow-up meeting, clearly believing that her plan is proceeding perfectly and that I'm walking directly into the trap she and David have prepared, completely unaware that I'm actually setting a much more sophisticated trap for both of them. After David leaves, Elena curls up beside me on the couch with the kind of satisfied contentment that suggests tonight's dinner was a major victory in her campaign to destroy my family, And she tells me how proud she is of my willingness to support young entrepreneurs and how much she loves watching me help other people succeed. David is exactly the kind of person who deserves success, Elena says, her head on my shoulder and her voice warm with false affection. And you have the power to really make a difference in his life. Make a difference in his life by giving him access to Chen Industries' client base and business relationships and confidential strategies, by opening doors that took my family 4 generations to build, by providing resources that will allow David Park to compete directly with the company that's supposed to benefit from my mentorship. I think you're right, I say, stroking Elena's hair while planning exactly what kind of difference I'm going to make in David Park's life. He seems like someone worth investing in. Elena snuggles closer and tells me she loves me, and I tell her I love her too. And both of us are lying for completely different reasons while planning the destruction of the person lying beside us. And I realize that this marriage has become a war where the first casualty was truth, and the last casualty will be whoever underestimates their opponent's capacity for strategic thinking. Next week, when David Park comes to my office expecting to receive mentorship and support and access to Chen Industries' resources, he's going to get exactly what he deserves. And Elena is going to discover that her husband is much more dangerous than she ever imagined when he's protecting the people he loves from the people who want to destroy them. Monday morning arrives with David Park sitting in the conference room at Chen Industries headquarters, his laptop open and his presentation materials arranged on the polished mahogany table that my grandfather imported from Taiwan 60 years ago. And I can see the confidence in his posture as he prepares to pitch his company to the man he believes will help him steal my family's legacy, while rewarding him for the effort. "Thank you for making time for this meeting," David says as I enter the conference room with coffee for both of us. "I've been looking forward to discussing how Park Industries and Chen Industries might work together." I settle across from David at the table where my father and grandfather and great-grandfather made the decisions that built our shipping empire, and I study the man who's planning to destroy everything they created while using their own resources to do it. And I have to admire the audacity of Elena's scheme, even while I plan its complete destruction. "I'm always interested in supporting innovative entrepreneurs," I say, which is true in ways David doesn't understand, especially those who demonstrate real understanding of the logistics industry. David launches into his presentation with polished enthusiasm, displaying charts and graphs that show Park Industries' projected growth and market opportunities, and I listen carefully while noting the remarkable similarities between his business plan and confidential strategies Chen Industries developed for expanding our own operations in the same market segments. "The Asian shipping market is particularly promising," David explains, his laser pointer highlighting growth projections that look suspiciously like internal forecasts Chen Industries prepared 6 months ago. "And I believe Park Industries is positioned to capture significant market share in that region." Positioned to capture market share, using client lists and business relationships that my great-grandfather spent decades building, using intelligence about Chen Industries' strategic planning that Elena gathered through pillow talk and photographed documents, using my family's resources to compete against my family's business. "Those are impressive projections," I say, studying the financial models David presents while mentally comparing them to the proprietary analysis Chen Industries conducted last quarter. "Your research methodology must be quite sophisticated." David beams with pride and begins explaining his market research techniques, though he's careful not to mention the inside information that Elena provides about Chen Industries' client base and strategic planning. And I realize that he genuinely believes his success will be based on superior business acumen rather than corporate espionage. "I've also identified several potential partnership opportunities," David continues, pulling up slides that show exactly which Chen Industries clients would be most vulnerable to competitive pressure. Companies that might benefit from more innovative logistics solutions. The clients David targets are precisely the ones Elena heard me discussing with my father during family dinners. Companies where Chen Industries has long-standing relationships but potentially exploitable weaknesses, and I marvel at the thoroughness of Elena's intelligence gathering while planning exactly how to use David's greed against him. Those are interesting targets, I say, and David's eyes light up because he thinks I'm agreeing to help him steal my family's clients. But I wonder if you've considered the potential risks of competing directly with established players in those markets. David dismisses my concerns with the kind of confident arrogance that suggests he believes Park Industries' success is inevitable, especially with Marcus Chen providing mentorship and support and access to the resources needed to outmaneuver Chen Industries in contract negotiations. The logistics industry needs disruption, David says, his voice carrying the evangelical fervor of a man who believes he's destined to revolutionize an entire market. And companies that can't adapt to changing customer needs will inevitably lose market share to more innovative competitors. More innovative competitors, like Park Industries, which will innovate by stealing Chen Industries' strategies and client relationships and business intelligence, using Elena's marriage to gain advantages that have nothing to do with superior technology or business methods. You make an excellent point, I say. And David practically glows with satisfaction because he thinks he's convincing Marcus Chen to support his company's campaign against Chen Industries. Innovation is definitely crucial for long-term success. As David wraps up his presentation and begins discussing specific ways Chen Industries might support Park Industries' growth, I make careful notes about his requests for introductions to our clients, access to our shipping networks, and information about our strategic planning. And I realize that Elena's scheme is even more ambitious than I originally thought. I'm particularly interested in learning about Chen Industries' relationships with Asian suppliers, David says. And I can hear Elena's coaching in his phrasing because she knows exactly which business relationships would be most valuable to Park Industries and most damaging for Chen Industries to lose. Those relationships are quite complex, I say carefully, built over multiple generations through personal trust and cultural understanding. They're not easily transferable. David nods as if he understands the delicacy of international business relationships, but I can see the calculation in his eyes as he considers how to gain access to connections that took my family 70 years to develop. And I realize that he views my great-grandfather's legacy as nothing more than a resource to be exploited for Park Industries' benefit. Of course, David says, I would never expect you to simply hand over your family's relationships, but perhaps there might be opportunities for joint ventures or collaborative projects that could benefit both companies. Joint ventures, that would give David Park access to Chen Industries' client base and shipping networks, while allowing him to claim that Park Industries' success is based on legitimate partnerships rather than stolen intelligence and manipulated relationships. That's an interesting possibility, I say. And David leans forward eagerly because he thinks he's about to receive exactly what he came here to get. But before we discuss specific collaborations, I'd like to understand more about Park Industries' financial backing and operational capabilities. David's enthusiasm dims slightly as I begin asking detailed questions about his company's funding sources, debt obligations, and operational infrastructure. Questions that reveal the weakness in Park Industries' foundation and the desperation behind David's confident presentation. Park Industries is currently in a growth phase, David says carefully, which means we are prioritizing market expansion over immediate profitability. Growth phase, a euphemism for burning through venture capital while hoping to steal enough business from Chen Industries to achieve sustainability before the money runs out. And I realize that David Park is much more vulnerable than Elena probably knows. As I probe deeper into Park Industries' finances, David becomes increasingly uncomfortable, and I discover that his company is carrying significant debt, that his major investors are demanding accelerated returns, and that his ambitious expansion plans depend entirely on acquiring the kind of established client base that Chen Industries spent generations building. The logistics industry requires substantial upfront investment, David explains, his confidence faltering as I ask increasingly specific questions about his cash flow and operational costs. But the long-term returns are exceptional for companies that can achieve critical mass. Critical mass, which David Park will never achieve through legitimate competition, which is why he needs Elena's intelligence and Chen Industries' resources, which is why he's sitting in my conference room pretending to seek mentorship while actually planning corporate theft. I appreciate your transparency, I say, closing my notebook and standing to signal the end of our meeting. Let me review Park Industries' materials and discuss potential collaboration opportunities with my team. David's face brightens because he thinks he's successfully convinced Marcus Chen to consider supporting Park Industries. And he shakes my hand with enthusiasm while completely unaware that our meeting just provided me with everything I need to destroy his company and his relationship with Elena. I look forward to hearing from you, David says as I walk him to the elevator. And please thank Elena for arranging this introduction. She's been incredibly supportive of Park Industries' vision. Incredibly supportive, by providing confidential information about Chen Industries' operations, by manipulating her husband into meeting with David, by positioning herself to benefit from Park Industries' success while Chen Industries collapses, by planning to leave me for David as soon as she's extracted everything valuable from my family. After David leaves, I immediately call James Walsh to accelerate his investigation into David Park's background and financial situation, because our meeting confirmed that David is operating under significant financial pressure and time constraints that I can exploit to turn Elena's scheme against both of them. I need everything you can find about David Park's debt obligations, investor relationships, and cash flow problems, I tell James. And I need it within 48 hours. That evening, Elena asks about my meeting with David with barely concealed excitement, clearly expecting to hear that I was impressed with his presentation and eager to support Park Industries' growth, and I can see the satisfaction in her eyes as she anticipates another successful step in her plan to destroy my family. David is very ambitious, I say, which is true, but not in the way Elena thinks, and his company definitely has potential. Elena curls up beside me on the couch and tells me how proud she is of my willingness to help young entrepreneurs, how much she loves watching me use my influence to make a positive difference in other people's lives, how lucky David is to have my support and guidance, and every word is poison wrapped in honey. I think David could really benefit from your mentorship, Elena says, her hand resting on my chest while she looks into my eyes with false sincerity. And I think supporting Park Industries could be very rewarding for Chen Industries as well. Very rewarding for Elena and David, who will use my support to steal my family's business while I congratulate myself on helping young entrepreneurs succeed, until the moment when Elena files for divorce and David terminates all contracts with Chen Industries, and I realize I've been systematically betrayed by the two people I trusted most. I'm sure it will be, I say, kissing Elena's forehead while planning exactly what kind of reward David Park is going to receive for his ambition, and exactly what kind of justice Elena Vasquez is going to receive for her betrayal. I'm looking forward to seeing how this relationship develops. Elena smiles and tells me she loves me, and I tell her I love her too, and we both know we're lying, but neither of us knows that the other person knows. and I realize that we are now in the final phase of a war, where the winner will be whoever strikes first with overwhelming force, while their opponent still believes they're winning. Tomorrow, James Walsh will provide the intelligence I need to destroy David Park's company and expose Elena's scheme, and then it will be time to spring the trap I've been building for 3 months, and Elena is going to discover that her husband is much more dangerous than she ever imagined when he's protecting everything she's trying to steal. 6 months later, I'm standing on the same stage at the Grand Meridian Hotel where Elena once made me toast David Park's success. But this time I'm holding a microphone and looking out at 300 of the city's business elite, who came here expecting to watch David Park receive another entrepreneurship award, but are about to witness something far more educational. "Ladies and gentlemen," I begin, my voice steady and clear as it carries through the ballroom where Elena sits at David's table, wearing the same red dress she wore to seduce me 3 years ago. "Before we present tonight's award, I think it's important that we all understand exactly how Park Industries achieved such remarkable success in such a short time." Elena's face goes pale as she realizes that something is wrong with the script she wrote for this evening, that Marcus Chen is not behaving like the naive husband who was supposed to congratulate David Park while the business community watched his public humiliation. And I can see the panic in her eyes as she begins to understand that her carefully planned scheme is about to collapse around her. "Park Industries has indeed shown impressive growth," I continue, pulling out the folder of evidence James Walsh compiled over the past 6 months. "But I think our business community deserves to know the true source of that growth before we celebrate it." The audience murmurs with curiosity as I activate the presentation screen behind me, displaying financial records and email exchanges and recorded conversations that document exactly how David Park built his empire on stolen intelligence and manipulated relationships. And I watch Elena's confident smile crumble as she sees her own handwriting in emails to David describing Chen Industries' confidential business strategies. "These documents show systematic corporate espionage," I announce, my voice carrying the authority of a man who has spent months preparing for this moment, "including the theft of proprietary client lists, confidential strategic plans, and sensitive financial information from Chen Industries." David starts to stand, his face flushed with anger and panic. But the hotel security guards I arranged in advance move to block the exits because I want to make sure everyone hears the complete story before David and Elena try to escape or spin their version of events. "The espionage was facilitated by Elena Vasquez," I continue, using Elena's maiden name deliberately because she never deserved to carry the Chen family name, who used her marriage to gain access to confidential Chen Industries information and then provided that intelligence to David Park for use against my family's business. The presentation screen displays recorded conversations between Elena and David discussing specific Chen Industries clients they planned to steal, business strategies they intended to undermine, and partnership agreements they wanted me to sign that would give Park Industries control over Chen Industries operations. But the corporate espionage was just the beginning, I say, advancing to the next slide, which shows financial records documenting the Vasquez family's history of marriage fraud. Elena Vasquez is part of a systematic scheme targeting wealthy businessmen for financial exploitation. The audience gasps as I display evidence of Elena's previous relationships with 3 other wealthy men who lost significant assets after marrying women connected to the Vasquez family, a pattern of seduction and betrayal that spans 10 years and multiple victims who were too embarrassed to pursue legal action. Elena Vasquez targeted me specifically because Chen Industries represented the largest potential extraction of wealth, I explain, my voice growing stronger as I watch Elena's carefully constructed world crumble in real time. And she used David Park as both her romantic partner and her vehicle for legitimizing the theft of my family's business relationships. Elena finally finds her voice and stands up, her face desperate as she tries to salvage something from the wreckage of her scheme, pointing at me with trembling fingers while her voice cracks with manufactured emotion. "Marcus is lying!" Elena shouts, but her voice sounds hollow in the vast ballroom. And no one believes her because the evidence is overwhelming and her panic is obvious. He's emotionally abusive and controlling. He's trying to destroy me because I fell in love with someone else. "Elena," I say calmly, my voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Would you like me to play the recordings of you describing your 3-year plan to steal Chen Industries' assets? Or perhaps the conversations where you and David discussed how much money you expected to extract before filing for divorce?" Elena's composure finally shatters completely as she realizes that I have documented evidence of everything she said and did, that her performance of loving wife was recorded and analyzed and will be used against her in court, that Marcus Chen was never the naive victim she thought she was manipulating. "The partnership agreements Elena convinced me to consider," I continue, displaying the documents on screen, "would have transferred effective control of Chen Industries to Park Industries while making the theft appear legitimate." David Park stands up abruptly, his chair clattering backward as he tries to leave the ballroom, but the security guards block his path while uniformed police officers enter through the side doors because I arranged for Detective Sarah Martinez to be here, with warrants for both David and Elena. David Park and Elena Vasquez are both facing charges for corporate espionage, marriage fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft, I announce as the police approach their table. And Park Industries is being investigated for money laundering and fraudulent business practices. The audience watches in stunned silence as Elena and David are arrested, their handcuffs clicking into place while reporters from the business journals document their humiliation for tomorrow's headlines, and I realize that justice feels different from revenge, cleaner, more satisfying, more permanent. 3 years ago, I say as Elena and David are led away, Elena's red dress now rumpled and her makeup ruined by tears. I stood on this stage and toasted David Park's success. But tonight I'm raising my glass to something far more valuable, the truth, and my liberation from people who saw my love as their opportunity. The audience erupts in applause as I hold up my champagne flute, and I can see my father Harrison Chen in the front row, his face glowing with pride instead of the stress-induced pallor that nearly killed him in my previous life, and my sister Lucy beside him, healthy and strong, instead of broken by our family's public humiliation. But the person I'm really looking for is Sarah Kim, who sits at a table near the stage and watches me with admiration and something deeper, something that looks like love, but feels like coming home after a long journey through darkness, and I realize that she was always the person I should have chosen, the person who deserved my loyalty and trust and affection. As the evening winds down and the business elite filter out of the ballroom discussing Elena's shocking betrayal and David's spectacular downfall, I walk over to Sarah's table and extend my hand like I'm asking her to dance, though what I'm really asking is much more important. "Sarah," I say, my voice gentle but certain, "would you like to have dinner tomorrow night? Just the two of us. No business, no legal documents, no schemes or strategies. Just two people who've known each other for years and maybe should have paid more attention to what was right in front of them." Sarah's smile lights up her entire face as she takes my hand, and I feel something settle in my chest that I realize is peace, the kind of deep contentment that comes from finally choosing the right person for the right reasons, from building something real with someone who wants to build it with you. "I'd love that," Sarah says, and her voice carries promise and possibility and the kind of genuine warmth that Elena never possessed. "I've been waiting for you to ask me that question for a very long time." As I help Sarah up from her chair and we walk together toward the ballroom exit. I catch a glimpse of the evening news on the hotel lobby television showing Elena and David in handcuffs, while the reporter discusses the shocking revelations about Park Industries' business practices. And I realize that their story is ending just as mine is beginning. 6 months later, I'm standing in the same law office where Sarah Kim helped me build the legal protections that saved Chen Industries from Elena's scheme. But this time I'm here for a much happier reason, as Sarah reviews the prenuptial agreement that will protect both of our assets when we marry next spring. "Everything looks perfect," Sarah says, closing the legal documents with a satisfied smile. "Though I have to say, this is the most romantic prenup I've ever drafted." She's right. Instead of the cold financial calculations that typically define prenuptial agreements, our contract focuses on mutual support and shared goals and the kind of partnership that builds something larger than either person could create alone. And I realize that real love requires protection, but not the kind Elena demanded when she tried to steal everything my family built. Chen Industries has not only recovered from Elena's attempted sabotage, but grown stronger than ever, with new partnerships and expanded Asian operations that my father Harrison leads with renewed energy and enthusiasm, no longer burdened by the stress of watching his son's marriage destroy 4 generations of family achievement. "The foundation is doing incredible work," Sarah continues, referring to the Chen Family Foundation we established to help victims of marriage fraud and corporate espionage. The legal clinic has already helped 12 families recover assets and prosecute the people who targeted them. "The foundation represents everything Elena's scheme taught me about protecting vulnerable people from predators who see love and trust as weaknesses to exploit. And every family we help feels like justice for the victims Elena and her family destroyed before they targeted the Chen family." Lucy has returned to college with renewed focus and confidence, her breakdown now just a distant memory as she studies international business and prepares to join Chen Industries after graduation. And she tells everyone who will listen that her brother Marcus is the smartest person she knows for recognizing Elena's deception before it destroyed their family. "Speaking of the foundation," Sarah says, pulling out a newspaper clipping from her desk drawer, "I thought you'd want to see this update about Elena's trial." I take the newspaper and read the headline, "Marriage Fraud Ring Convicted. Elena Vasquez sentenced to 8 years in federal prison." And I feel a sense of closure rather than triumph because Elena's punishment represents justice rather than revenge, accountability rather than cruelty. "David got 12 years, Sarah adds, and the judge ordered full restitution to Chen Industries and the other victims, though I doubt they'll be able to pay back everything they stolen. David Park's spectacular downfall happened exactly as I planned, with his investors withdrawing funding once his corporate espionage became public knowledge, his clients terminating contracts once they realized their confidential information had been compromised, and his company declaring bankruptcy within weeks of his arrest. "The important thing is that they can't hurt anyone else," I say, returning the newspaper to Sarah's desk, "and the families they targeted before us are finally getting justice." Sarah nods and reaches across her desk to take my hand, her fingers warm and steady and honest in ways that Elena's never were. And I realize that the difference between manipulation and love is the difference between taking and giving, between using and supporting, between destroying and building. "Marcus," Sarah says, her voice soft but serious, "are you sure you're ready for this? Marriage, I mean. After everything Elena put you through." "I'm sure," I interrupt, bringing Sarah's hand to my lips to kiss her knuckles, "because marrying you isn't about recovering from Elena's betrayal. It's about building something real with someone who wants to build it with me." Sarah's smile transforms her entire face, and I realize that she was always beautiful, but I was too distracted by Elena's dangerous glamour to notice Sarah's quiet elegance and genuine warmth, and the kind of inner strength that builds rather than destroys. "I love you," Sarah says. And the words sound completely different from when Elena used to say them, because Sarah means them, because Sarah chose me for who I am, rather than what I can provide, because Sarah wants to share a life, rather than steal one. "I love you too," I say, and for the first time in 3 years the words feel true and clean, and full of possibility rather than manipulation and deception and hidden agendas. That evening, Sarah and I have dinner at the restaurant where we had our first official date 6 months ago, the night after Elena's arrest, when I finally asked the question I should have asked years earlier. And I watch Sarah across the candlelit table and marvel at how different real love feels from Elena's carefully constructed performance. "I have something for you," I say, pulling out the small velvet box that contains my grandmother's engagement ring, the same ring Elena wore while planning my family's destruction, the same ring that symbolized everything false and manipulative about my first marriage, but that now represents everything genuine and hopeful about my future with Sarah. "Marcus," Sarah gasps as I open the box to reveal the antique diamond that has been in the Chen family for 60 years. "It's beautiful, but are you sure, given the history?" "The ring isn't cursed," I say, taking Sarah's left hand while I slip the engagement ring onto her finger. "Elena was. And now it gets to be part of something real instead of something stolen." Sarah's eyes fill with tears as she looks at the ring on her finger, and I realize that she understands the significance of this moment, not just our engagement, but the reclamation of my family's legacy from people who tried to steal it, the transformation of something tainted by betrayal into something blessed by genuine love. "Yes," Sarah whispers, though I haven't actually asked the question yet. "Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I want to build a life with you. Yes to everything we're going to create together." I lean across the table to kiss my fiancé, and Sarah tastes like wine and possibility and the kind of future that Elena never offered because she was always planning to destroy rather than build, always calculating how to take rather than give, always scheming toward endings rather than beginnings. As we drive home from dinner, Sarah wearing my grandmother's ring and both of us planning our spring wedding, my phone buzzes with a text message from an unknown number. And when I check it at the next red light, I see Elena's name and a message that says, "I hope you're happy with your victory. You destroyed my entire life." I show the message to Sarah, who reads it and shakes her head with something that might be pity, but looks more like contempt. And I realize that Elena still doesn't understand that she destroyed her own life by choosing betrayal over love, manipulation over partnership, theft over building. "Should we report this to her parole officer?" Sarah asks, because Elena is sending messages from prison in violation of the no-contact order the judge issued, or just block the number? "Block it," I say, deleting Elena's message without responding. Some people never learn that actions have consequences, and Elena Vasquez isn't worth our time or energy anymore. Sarah blocks Elena's number, and we drive the rest of the way home in comfortable silence. And I realize that Elena's text message was actually a gift because it reminded me of exactly how far I've traveled from the naive husband who once believed that love meant trusting someone who was systematically destroying everything he cared about. 3 months later, Sarah and I are married in a ceremony at the Chen family estate, surrounded by the people who matter most. My father Harrison, healthy and proud as he walks Sarah down the aisle, my sister Lucy as maid of honor, beaming with joy at gaining a sister she actually respects and admires, and James Walsh and Detective Martinez as honored guests who helped bring justice to the people who tried to destroy my family. As we exchange vows under the cherry trees my great-grandfather planted 70 years ago, I look into Sarah's eyes and see my future. Not as someone's mark or victim or source of wealth, but as someone's partner and husband and co-creator of something beautiful and lasting and real. To Sarah Kim, I say during my wedding toast, raising my champagne flute to my wife while our guests applaud, who never needed to manipulate my love because she was worthy of it from the beginning. Sarah raises her own glass and smiles at me with eyes that shine with love instead of calculation, with warmth instead of deception, with promises instead of schemes. And I realize that the greatest revenge against Elena Vasquez wasn't destroying her. It was building a life so beautiful that her absence made it better. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but liberation is a warm toast shared with someone who loves you for exactly who you are, not what you can provide. And as I clink my champagne flute against Sarah's and kiss my wife while our families cheer, I realize that sometimes the best way to win a war is to stop fighting and start building something worth protecting instead.